This video reviews two methods for graphing lines. The first method we're going to look at is the X-Intercept Y-Intercept method of graphing. The second method is going to be Slope-Intercept method. So in the X-Intercept Y-Intercept method, the first thing you want to do is to realize that an intercept is the point on the X or Y axis. So you're going to end up with two of them since you have two axes. To find these, you let X be 0 and find Y, and then you let Y be 0 and find X. So the first one we're going to look at is 2x plus 3y is equal to 9. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the y-intercept first, and then we're going to find the x-intercept. Notice how you write them as points, a pair of x and y coordinates. So the x-y coordinate, and you would solve for y, and that would be the y that goes in this point here. And x is 0 because that's what you do with it first. And then you would solve for the x-intercept, and y would become 0. And therefore, the x would go there. So realize that you're going to end up with 2 points. So the first thing I'm going to do is do exactly what it says. I'm going to find the y-intercept. And if I'm finding the y-intercept, I'm going to make x equal to 0. So 0 times 2 is 0. 3y is equal to 9. Therefore, I get 3y equals to 9. I divide by 3 because it's multiplying by 3 to get rid of it. I do the same thing on both sides, and I get y is equal to 3. Remembering that I need to write this as a point, I end up with 0, 3 because I originally plugged in 0 for x, so I already know what the x is. I put that on the graph, 0, 3, so I go to the x-axis and the y-axis. So I go to the x-axis and I stay in the middle. And so the graph that I'm actually going to, the point that I'm actually going to put there is 3 above. So 0 for the x tells me I don't move left or right. And 3 above means 1, 2, 3. So that's my y-intercept. Now I'm going to find my x-intercept. As it says, I'm going to let y be 0 and solve for x. So to find my x-intercept, I have 2x plus 3 times 0 is equal to 9. That gives me 2x is equal to 9. Divide by 2 on both sides, and I get x is equal to 4.5 or 4.5. Notice you can have a decimal. There's nothing wrong with a decimal. It's just as good as any other number. Remember, we have to write this as a point, so we know that we're graphing on a coordinate plane. So x always goes first for my ordered pairs. 4.5, comma, 0. Where did the 0 come from? I plugged that in for y in the beginning. So I'm going to take that point, and I'm now going to graph that point. 4.5. 4.5 is halfway between 4 and 5. That's my x-intercept, so I should end up on my x-axis. So I go to my origin, and then I'm going to go across 4.5 to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Halfway between 4 and 5 appears right here. Let me do this in blue so you can see it a little bit better. Halfway between. And now I have 2 points. I only need 2 points to draw a straight line, and when I do this, I need to connect my points. And since this is an equation, it's a solid line. Okay, you're going to use a straight edge, so your line will probably be a little bit better than mine. Okay, and so what we end up with is the graph of 2x plus 3y equals 9. This is using the intercepts method. Notice you end up with 2 separate points, not 1 point. We can do the same exact thing using the slope-intercept method, but first we have to do a couple things. The first thing we need to do is make sure that the equation that we're using is in y equals mx plus b form. So if it's not in that form, we must put it in that form first to use this method. Second thing we want to do is we want to write our y-intercept as a point, 0, b. Remember what the b is. The b is the y-intercept when you write it in this form, so you pretty much already know what it is from looking at it. We want to write our slope as a fraction, so we can use rise over run, which is also the change in the y value over the y values over the change in the x values. Last but certainly not least, we want to start at our y-intercept, and we want to use this change in y over change in x, this rise over run, to find the next point. The hint is if you want to make your graph a little more accurate, which we always want to be more accurate, you'd make 3 points by following the same exact directions either in the opposite way or continuing along the line that you started to make. Connect and draw a straight line through them, making sure you put arrows in the end of your line because it goes on in both directions forever. So with the same exact problem that we did before, we should end up with the same exact line because we have the same exact equation that we started with. This is just a different method for being able to put it on the graph. Remembering that this is our x-axis and this is our y-axis, just so we know what we're doing when we get there. So as a first step, we need to solve so that this looks like y equals mx plus b. So in order to solve this, I'm going to use my knowledge of literal equations, and I'm going to do the additive inverse to move things away from the y so that I can get the y by itself. So I end up with minus 2x plus 9. There was a positive 9, so it's a plus 9. And the minus 2x came from the left side. I'm not complete because the y is not completely by itself, so I must divide by 3 because it's being multiplied by 3. And notice I end up with y is equal to negative 2/3 x plus 3. Notice I separated this problem and completely finished it in order for me to be able to graph it. You must do the same. Now, next step says to write the y-intercept as 0, b. Well, the b value here is positive 3. So my y-intercept is going to be 0, 3. I put that on the graph just like I did before. 1, 2, 3 on the y-axis. But now I'm going to use a different method to find the other things that I need, which would be the other points. I'm going to use the slope, and I'm going to write it as a fraction. Lucky for us, it's already a fraction. And I have to decide where I'm going to put that negative. Since the negative is out front, I can either put it on the top or on the bottom. It doesn't matter. It still gives you the same thing. So I'm going to put it on the top. I could have also put it on the bottom. And I'm going to show you how I can use either way and still get the same answer. So right now, we're going to use this one. But I must choose a place to put it. So I have minus 2, which means to go down 2. So I'm actually not rising. I'm falling. So I'm starting at my y-intercept, I'm going to go down 2. And since the change in the x, which is the number on the bottom, the denominator, is positive, I'm going to go to the positive x, which is to the right. So I'm going to go down 2 and 3 to the right. That gives me 1 point. For more accuracy, I'm going to repeat. Rinse and repeat. Down 2, 3 to the right, and I get another point. Notice you can actually see these points are on the same line. I also can go from my inequality, from my y-intercept up and to the left, because this, if I use this one, it says positive 2 over negative 3. So positive 2 means go up 2 and go negative 3, 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. You notice it still ends up being on the same exact line. I did more points than you have to do. You only need 2. 3 makes your line more accurate. 4 makes it even more accurate than that. I make sure I connect all of the points that I had before. Okay? And you can actually see how this is the same exact line that we had before because it crosses at my x-intercept at halfway between 4 and 5. So I've completed this and I've graphed both of them. So just another way to kind of look at this, if the equation that you're given is already in slope-intercept form, you can recognize this one because the y is by itself, the x has a number with it, and then you have a y-intercept. It makes sense to use this method right away. So first step, write my y-intercept as a point. Then I want to write my slope as a fraction. Then I basically want to use my point and follow the directions. Okay, thinking of my y-intercept as a starting point and my slope as the directions to get to my other points. So positive 1 is my starting point. This says go down 2 and 3 to the right. Down 2 and 3 to the right. I also could do it the opposite way, remember? And I can go up 2 and 3 to the left. I still end up on this same point. Notice the y-intercept is different this time. I put my information through this, and I end up with my graph. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.